Hello, everyone. It's Sean with Carolina Code School, and this week we are talking to Seth Williams. Seth, hey, man, how's it
Hey
going? How you
man,
been?
I'm all right, man. How about you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for coming on this week. It's going to be great to
Yeah,
hear
man.
from you. You and I have done some work together in the past. So why don't you give a little bit of background? So tell us who you are and what you are up to these days.
Yeah. Seth Williams, and I'm in Atlanta. If you're not from Atlanta, I'm in Tucker. If you're from Atlanta, it's pretty. Neighborhoods are sacred here, and um, and I am a senior software engineer for a company called Snap Mobile. Um, and what we do is it's a digital fundraising platform for youth sports and clubs and teams and stuff like that. Basically, making digital fundraising accessible to everyone. Yeah.
Nice. And you and I have joked we did the cross, right? So my
Yes,
wife and I came from
ships in the
Atlanta to
night.
Greenville. Yeah, and then as we were coming into Greenville, you were moving into Atlanta. I feel like that's the rules in Atlanta though, right? You can't they're not letting anybody else in unless somebody leaves. So
Yep.
so you're welcome. We left so that you
Yeah.
could
Thank
move
you.
to Tucker.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's actually what
um,
I tell people when they tell me to get out. I'm like, no, no, no. I traded places
yeah.
with Sean. It's cool.
Yeah, and they're like, "Oh no, that guy's gone. Perfect. That's wonderful." Uh, so how long have you been? Did you say have you been at the current company?
I've actually only been at the current company for 3 months, 2 months, something like that.
Okay, so relatively new.
Late last year. Yeah.
Are they an Atlanta-based company or are you
No,
remote?
we're
How's that working out?
distributed. Yeah.
Okay, nice.
So engineering headquarters is in Dallas, and then company headquarters is in Seattle. Um,
Okay,
and none of us really are working together in person. We're all separate. You know.
nice. How big is the team?
Our team is, let's see, our immediate team is I think 5 devs and then a project manager, product owner. So seven-ish total. But we get the company's kind of free flowing, like you're working on different kind of products coming in and out of different jobs. So we have probably two or three other devs float in and out as needed. Yeah,
Nice. And
yeah, man.
is this your first remote job, or have you been like when you first got
No,
your
man.
career in tech?
Yeah, no. In tech, so I went to Carolina Code School in 2019, which we can talk about that at some point. But in May of that year, I started working an internship for a company based in Greenville, Ernest. I did that for 2 months, then moved to Atlanta for a contract to hire job in July. That job was hybrid until COVID, and then I've been fully remote since.
Okay, nice. So you basically
Yeah,
went straight into your coding journey and then straight into remote work then.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
Nice.
pretty rad.
So, all right. So tell us. So you went coding. Now you're remote. So tell us how you got to the coding. So what was the journey? What were you doing before you went to Carolina Code School? What led you to Carolina Code School? And were you? I'm gonna just assume you were probably not doing remote work before Carolina
No,
Code School, so you had that adjustment to go through as well.
yeah, no, no, no. I have never worked a remote. Well, I did work a remote job for about 6 months, but I tell people as far as my trajectory to get to this point. I've done. I tell people I've done everything from build cars to sell them, and everything in between. Like as far as not even just in the car industry. Like I worked in a wood shop. I've worked in basically every restaurant in Greenville, and I've done uh, educational onboarding for students and things of that nature. Like basically, I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. Um, I was kind of rudderless. Like I would see something and I was like, I think I could be passionate about that, and then I would dive in and realize a year later that I wasn't at all. Like I probably hated it more often than not. But uh, I went to college 3 times, dropped out 3 times, almost immediately. Like like the second week, I mentally dropped out every time. Uh,
Yeah.
and that path, it just wasn't for me. But my wife, she definitely did a more traditional path. She straight into undergrad after high school, got her first job like a month after finishing her undergrad, and then started her master's immediately as well. Like
Oh yeah, yeah.
she
That's
played it
very
by the
traditional.
book.
Yeah.
Yeah. And but she was so supportive of kind of just, she was like, well, you don't, we were in our 20s, and she's like, you don't have to figure this out today. Just try it out. We'll play it by ear. And then I was working as a manager for a restaurant in Greenville, and our second kid is on the way. And basically, the restaurant industry is not great for families typically.
No. Yeah.
Especially, I'm sitting here like closing stuff down at 2 in the morning. My wife is waking up 3 hours later for school, and so it's just like you and I, we were ships in the
Yeah.
night. It
Yeah.
was just,
Exactly.
I don't know. I needed a change because I could see it getting to a point to where I would never be able to like tuck my kids in at night. I would never be able to, you know, I wouldn't take them to school. I wouldn't, like it would be a mess. And so, uh, I had some friends who were software engineers. Actually, one of them is my boss now.
Oh,
And
nice.
yeah, it's cool. Network people. But had some friends. They actually convinced me. They were like, just try out the. So Carolina Code School has this foundations course. They're like, just try that out and see what you think. Um, and I did a Udemy class up to that point. And so the second day of my daughter's life, I started the foundations course at Carolina Code School. Yeah, yeah. And that's how we got to this point.
Nice. And for those that don't know, Foundations is what we offer. It's a 2 week course, happens at night. It's a few hours. I think it's every night. I don't teach it, so I don't know all that schedule so well. But it's a few hours a night, every night, and it is the opportunity to sort of dip your toe into the world, and it gives you a taste of what going to code school would be like. And code school, for the differentiation, so Foundations is in the evening, and it covers specific topics in a 2 week time period, for a few hours every night. And then Code School is every day, all day, for 12 weeks. So it's a bigger thing, but the Foundations program is actually fantastic,
Yeah,
for dipping your toe in it. I know we have some of those courses that we keep running them pretty regularly. Let's do a side quest though and talk about your Foundations experience. Then I want to circle back into your full-time experience and how it transitioned. How did one prepare you for the other? But first, let's talk about your experience in Foundations, and what were your thoughts going in? Did you know what to expect? Did you have any idea? Or were you just like, this seems like the lowest risk option, so I'm just going to throw my hat in the ring and see what happens?
no, I guess so. I did the foundations course in December of 2018, and
Okay.
I had a really good idea. I don't know how it is now, but I was very fortunate. Alex Martin led our course,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
so I mean, that's about as good as it gets for, with the exception of you, Sean, I'm sure, as a teacher now, but
It's fine. I
uh,
wasn't there in 2019, so I'm fine. It's cool. You're cool.
um, but Alex set it up, and essentially, basically, what we did, excuse me, he said, "Here's website A. You need to replicate this." And so HTML, CSS, a little bit of JavaScript, and I did that. So I spent time with my daughter all the way up until like 5:30. Then went to foundations from 6 to 8 or something like that, and then would go back. And so it was just for, I think at the time, I think it was 2 weeks. And that, along with the pre-course work that Carolina Code School uh, gives out, I think prepped me really well for getting into the immersive piece in January 6th. Oh, yeah, the a good January 6th.
Yeah, 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 exactly. Yeah, there's a there. Yeah, the less said the better. So, were you also then working? So you had a newborn child, second child, foundations. Were you also working in addition to that? So your days were, or had you
With
by that point gotten out
foundations,
of the restaurant industry?
so I quit the restaurant industry in October, and sort of, and I just picked up gig jobs, gig economy for a couple months to where I could be where I needed to be when I needed to be there. So, like if my wife needed me, I just didn't go pick up someone's food or whatever. And
Gotcha.
and then yeah, it was left the restaurant industry in October, then just did gig economy. And then I would still work while doing foundations. Yeah, so it was I would probably work a few hours at night after she went to bed. I would deliver people's bar food basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nice,
Yeah,
nice.
man.
And so you kind of had the freedom, but it wasn't. So again, the foundations course is designed for people that kind of want to get their feet wet and understand if it's
Yeah.
something that they want to
Yeah,
get
yeah.
into. It sets the pace. We give a general idea. Alex is the CTO of the organization, and so he doesn't teach the course currently. It's currently being taught by Isaac, who is the teaching assistant with me, graduate of
Oh,
the
nice.
program
Yeah, that
as
dude's great.
well. Yeah, he's doing a fantastic job. And in um, when we're recording this, the current cohort I have, I think a good 3/4 of the students in that class, possibly more, have all gone through the foundations course, which is, and all of them speak highly of going through that course. And I can
Yeah.
speak to it from the teaching side. It's nice. Those folks have been fantastic for the other students in the class who didn't have the opportunity to go through foundations, because they can help those folks kind of fill in some of the blanks. They kind of help others. And this is something I'm sure you're familiar with. When you're in the class, when you're in that full-time immersive class, it is a group experience, right? It's never
Yeah.
you by
Oh, yeah.
yourself. And so these folks are able to help the folks that weren't in that class. And it just gives a nice bit of camaraderie and working. So let's pivot into your experience in the class. So you're doing gig work during the day, you're doing classes at night, you're getting your feet wet, kind of figuring out what you want to do. And then you say, you know what, let's do it. And the next thing you know, in January of 2019, right, you're
Hmm. Yep.
full time staring at a machine for 8, 12, 14, 16 hours a day,
Dude,
and
yes.
writing in all kinds of languages.
Yeah, man. So it went, first off, I'd recommend, I know that not everyone is able to do everything, but if you can do, if you're contemplating this, getting the immersive course, do the foundations class if at all possible, because it made the first 2 weeks or so um, just doable. It's like, uh, and I did see just a differentiation between students who were able to take it and weren't. Uh, that if you weren't, then you just had to work harder. It's not
Mhm.
impossible by any means, but it's just you're starting from a different place. Um, yeah. So, but I coding just in general didn't really come naturally to me when I started. Like it's gotten better, figured out patterns, things like that. But I mean, I would go. Um, I actually had Maddie, who was teaching at the time. She got me a key fob to where I could come in. Like I was usually like the first one into the building because I just needed the time away from a crying baby, uh, and B just solitude to get ready for the day. And so I would be there probably a couple hours before class started, typically working. Uh, and it's a grind, man. Yeah, like you said, it's, I mean, 14, 16 hour days. So I did not work during that time, just to be clear. And I think it would be very difficult to work. It's probably been done, but I couldn't have.
Yeah, it's for those that don't know, the immersive program is it starts every day at 9, and it technically runs 9 to 5. Although I've been there for two cohorts, and I've taught at previously when I was in Atlanta, and there were very few students, if any, that were just on a 9 to 5 schedule. I'll get in the
Yeah.
morning early to kind of get things lined up for the day. And so I'm in the building at, 7:30, and it's not abnormal to have a student come in, 15 minutes after I've walked in the door. for a
Yeah.
class that starts at 9. Um,
Yeah.
uh, I'm now distracted by the screen that did the thumbs up thing on the Mac. Um, and I will leave. So I lecture from 9 to noon, and then we break for lunch, and then they have assignments in the afternoon, very similar to what your class was, I imagine.
Yeah.
Lecture in the morning, exercise in the
Yep.
afternoon,
That was it.
and and some folks will stay. Like you had mentioned, some folks will stay. They're there till 5, then they'll go home and they'll be online working on stuff until all hours of the night. Other folks, in the last course, we had a young lady that would, similar to you, had a house that there was a lot of activity going on, and so just to kind of have a degree of solitude, would stay in the building till 7 or 8 o'clock at night. So it is, when we refer to it as immersive, it is truly immersive. There
It
is
is.
lots of moving parts going on. Now, contrast that. You said you started college 3 times, and as someone who also I eventually finished after 15 years, but I had similarly had a lot of like, I'm going to start this and then go, nah, this isn't where I want to be right now.
Yeah.
So compare your experience. Was it a matter of you were older and you're a little more focused? Was it that there was something about coding that struck a chord with you? What kept you involved in a coding immersive where it's like a dump truck of information getting poured on your head every day versus your experience in a college kind of standard academic environment?
Yeah. So my last time in college, like there's a specific instance that put towards the feelings that I had had for the duration of my time. So I was in a Japanese history class, and I was going for like I don't remember what I had declared at the time, but I was doing general education requirements essentially, and um, it was a cool class, but I wasn't like getting anything out of it that I couldn't get from YouTube or a book or whatever. Like it, I was paying a couple $1,000s to take a class that could have been an email, like that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's one of those where it's like, and it had nothing to do with what I wanted to do. Like it was cool. It was interesting and I paid attention. It's probably my favorite class I ever took, but it was the thing that like made me realize the problem for me with the traditional education background is that I'd have to dump so much money into it prior to even getting to my focus. Um, and honestly, just 4 years, three, like three if I'm flying, but probably 8 if I have a family, which I did at the last time I went, and
Yeah.
like, I don't have time for this. I
Right.
just, I was like, I need to figure this out. And so, figuring out a job where I could, be ready to apply for jobs in a few months, uh, in a career path that I get to solve puzzles every day, which I love to do. Like that's all like that's what it is. It's Googling well and solving puzzles. And I don't want to that's oversimplifying it obviously, but um yeah, I just saw this as the path of, even though it is heavy resistance for 3 months, it is the path of least resistance all around, even financially. Like if you think about how much money you spend total for college and also the income lost over the extra time that it takes, it's in my mind, it was a no brainer. Like when I put pen to pad and listed out, because you see that it's sticker shock. You see the price of a code school or whatever, and of course you're like, for 3 months, and um, but then, I mean, I had my first job and I had in the first, so 9 months, the difference in my pay from being manager at a restaurant to my job that I got in July uh, was over the cost of the school. And then, so yeah,
Yeah.
no brainer, man.
Yeah, and again, as someone that was a very non-traditional path, I eventually did finish college, and I got a degree in English, which doesn't suit programming terribly much unless I'm writing something about King Arthur, and then suddenly it's very relevant. But
You speak
um,
it well.
yeah, there you go. That's what I do, and I try to get less mush mouthed the more I talk, so that the University of Georgia doesn't come back and try to take that degree back. Um, but you hit on something that I thought was really interesting, is that you had said you had done some Udemy courses before you jumped into the foundations course, and you were
Hmm.
taking a course in college, and in the college course, you felt like this was stuff that you could get on YouTube, that you could get online. There a lot of folks that come into coding, there are any number of free materials available online.
Oh,
I
sure.
recommend tons
Yeah.
of them for folks that are learning to code. How would you contrast the learning experience of being in a classroom for coding versus doing something on Udemy, doing a free code camp course? And is there anything in particular, and I don't know that you'll have an answer to this, but is there anything in particular about that, the classroom experience in that regard, that made you not feel like this is the same thing I could get just watching a bunch of YouTube videos, when you compared it to your
Oh, yeah.
college course?
Yeah. I mean, so what is it called? The response cycle. I don't know what it's called, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like being able to, because like the difference was like the history class or whatever in school had nothing to do with the outcome of where I wanted to be long term.
Got you.
Um,
Yep.
so being in the classroom, that made no sense. Where it was like this is at best an interest to me, um,
Mm,
and that's at best. A lot of times, I'm like, I actually do not care about what this person's saying,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
but in with coding, um, having a industry professional be able to close the loop immediately, where I'm like, something's wrong. And with coding, a lot of times your errors are hard stops. It's not like it's like I question this. I'm like,
Right.
I wonder what happened to this empire or whatever, like let me Google.
Right.
It's like, this is an error. This will not work until there's a feedback loop completed. Either finding it on your own, if you go through a course online, or like YouTube or whatever, or um, you know coming or in a class with a teacher or your classmates. That's another thing, the having the classmates there. Everyone has, and this is something that I still tell. There's some group here in Atlanta that I help with, and I'm like, ask your questions out loud, because someone else has the same question, they just haven't asked it yet.
A hundred
and
percent.
and someone else knows the answer, and they just don't know that you have that group. Like you said, it's having that community there, all going through the same thing, struggling. Like it's a fire hose, there's no way around it. Like you're trying to cram a ton of information in a short amount of time, and it's stressful. And uh but knowing that there are these other people who feel the same way as you, and they have the same questions as you, and all of this stuff is getting resolved together, um, it is a totally different experience. And I would not have completed it had I done it alone. It's just the way that I would find reasons to get in the way. Um, and speed, honestly. Like you and, my case, it was Dan Deeds. Y'all know how to learn this stuff. Uh, and I didn't. I'm just like
Right.
Googling, some dude on Reddit, whoever has the most upvotes. I'm like, this guy knows
Right.
what he's talking about. I'm like,
Surely this is
that's not,
correct.
yeah, uh, yeah. It's like, well, no, actually, the people that gave him upvotes are dumb too. No, I'm kidding, but
Right.
it's like, but it's like, no,
Nobody
but
knows this answer, and they're just
yeah,
upvoting it because
yeah,
it's written well.
yeah. It started a cycle. Everyone's like, once he got in early, or they got in early, and it
Right. Right.
started getting traction. Everyone's like, well, this must be the right answer. Uh, but anyways, yeah, it's the community, and not only the community during, but after, um, knowing about, like, it's a huge networking tool. Like, I got the internship that I got because uh, Carolina Coach School gave me a free ticket to a conference, and I met the guys there that I worked with, and like, so it's a a different beast entirely than just like learning a hobby or something like that.
And you mentioned that earlier about networking, and so this is the kind of the perfect time to swing back to that. You and I actually know each other because as my first cohort at Carolina Code School, the one that just ended, was finishing up. You had reached out to help to volunteer your time to help these students that are coming through this course as they're getting into their final projects. At the end of the 12 weeks, the students present we have a demo day where the students are presenting a project that they built. They spent 3 weeks on. They built entirely front to back. All the moving parts were their responsibility. And you reached out to me and you said, "Hey, I've done this before. I know what they're going through. How can I help?" And you're not the only alumni who has done that. And it's a thing that I think Carolina Code School does really well is there are so many folks like yourself who, once you're done, you don't disappear. You stay a part of this
Right.
community and you reach out. And so when a new student comes in, they're not just getting the community of the people in the classroom with them, but they are getting almost every student who has graduated. What was your experience with that? Did you get that when you were a student and that led you to continue that tradition? How did you end up what happened before you were like, "Hey Sean, can I help out with the class?"
Yeah, so I was in the third cohort ever at Carolina Code School.
Oh wow,
So,
yeah.
and the first cohort I think was 3 people, and then the second was a little larger. Um, so there was already like this, uh, I don't know, this foundation of helping, basically reach behind you, pull someone else up. Essentially, like that's the idea. It's
Mhm.
but the the person that helped our cohort the most from previous cohorts, and he's still very active, Caleb McQuaid. He was in the
Yep.
second cohort, I think, and so he was around, and so that kind of set the tone. Him and then a couple other people at the time kind of set the tone, I think, for this like pay it forward kind of thing because everyone has been there, and Uh, yeah, I think it sets the tone, helping out and just setting up the next person because I think there's tons of room at the table still, even though it's a pretty sketchy time right now. Like it's when you look at the news or whatever, you're like, oh boy, is this the right
Yeah.
time? There's still plenty of room at the table, man. So I think it's all about community over competition with this stuff. Gotta
Absolutely.
gotta help people out, man.
If we are doing our job well as instructors, as an organization, we are not only building developers, but we're building ladders for other people to come into the
Absolutely,
developing
man.
community. And folks like yourself are an absolute demonstration of that. You are, for all intents and purposes, a ladder for the next group that's coming up, and someone that will learn from your example will be the ladder for the person behind them. And there are plenty of other tech related places to get hired that are not Facebook, Google, Amazon, and the places that we read about in the news and the
Yeah,
places that are doing massive
absolutely.
layoffs, which you are now at one and you're working in kind of a specialized niche field. So what is next for you? You have been at this company for 3 months, you said,
Yeah.
and so talk a little bit about kind of where that is and where you're kind of looking down the line. Do you have a 6 month, 6 year sort of plan that you're looking at to go into next?
Yeah, yeah, and then just as a note on the last thing, just super quick, this the reason I think it is so important to pay it forward is because this industry is one that creates generational change. Like it's set us up to where I don't know, my kids get something, you know what I mean? And then it's
Mm-hmm.
like setting up the next generation well. It's it's the kind of thing where I do get to see the fruit of the labor now, but also it's creating like fruit I'll never see. I'll be long gone,
100%.
and that's
Absolutely.
fine.
Yeah.
But it's creating this snowball. But anyways, to your point, to your question, I don't know, man. I'm just getting settled. I'm enjoying. This is my first senior role, so I'm just learning at this point. Right now, I think there's kind of like two paths that developers typically take, and one is just being good at code and good with people, or being just an absolute dog at code, like just a killer. And
Yeah.
that's not me. Like I'm pretty okay at this, like at the end of the
Yeah.
day, like compared to people that I work with, I'm like, I'm all right.
Nah,
Uh,
you're good. You're
and,
good. I've seen
and
your code.
then,
I know what you can do.
but, uh, so I think eventually I'll get into kind of bridging the gap between developers and business side. Yeah, I think right now though, I'm just enjoying this new company. We're building really cool tech stack, really cool, and that is a cool thing. It's a very innovative thing, and that's uh, I've had 4 jobs now, and they've all been innovative in 4 different spaces. But the key is
Nice.
that it's innovative. Like you're getting to
Right.
solve puzzles in different fields. So just innovate, man. That's my goal for life. I would just at a time when it's over, I
Yep.
want people to say he worked hard for the people he loved and he paid it forward. Like that's it. Uh, and so wherever that leads to where I can keep that path up, that's what I'll do next.
Nice. And I can attest to both of those things that you are doing. Absolutely, both of those things. You are fantastic about paying it forward. You have been instrumental in some of the work that I have been doing coming into the company and working with the curriculum and making some adjustments. So thank you for that. As we
Easy, man.
wrap
Thanks.
up, you mentioned earlier networking is a big thing. So as we wrap
Yes.
up, let's say so networking would be one. What would be your top two if we go with networking? What would be the second piece of advice that you would give to somebody who is entertaining the idea of going to code school or is in code school? What is something that you wish you would have heard when you were on that journey that you would like to share with someone who is at that point themselves?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. First, network. Uh, if it makes you uncomfortable, find a way to get past that. It's a very like invaluable piece. And then second, change the scope. Change kind of how you view things. Don't say I feel like I didn't do better than I feel like I'm not any better than I was yesterday. It's view it in months or weeks even.
Yeah.
It's very easy to get down on yourself if you say, well, yesterday, uh, or today I still have the same problem that I did yesterday. But when you widen that scope, you're like, well, actually, I'm in a whole different piece of the project a week later, and then I'm in a whole different project a month later. It's like, um, so widen the scope, and it's all about giving yourself grace in the low points. Just, you know, we're humans, and we're gonna have bad days. We're gonna have great days. Um, so just keep hitting the wall. It'll break.
Absolutely. And yeah, I can't you said it right there. You know that the problem that you have today is a problem that you probably couldn't even conceive of having a week
Right.
ago. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so every problem that you're dealing with in the minute is often a problem of you stepping up to another level. And so yeah, that is fantastic advice. I hope we clip this part out and we send that to all of the students because yeah, keep going through, keep fighting, and keep
Yeah.
learning, and you can have, as you said, life changing things. Seth, thank you
Yeah.
so much for spending the time with me this morning to talk about this. And again,
Yeah,
thank you for
man.
everything you've done for Carolina Code School and the program and all of our students, past, present, and future. Um, and we appreciate you coming on and sharing your story.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. This was great. Yeah. And if
Yeah,
anyone, feel free to wherever this is posted, put my information. If anyone wants to reach out directly, I'm cool with that too.
absolutely. Why don't you go ahead and give a plug for your LinkedIn while we're on here? How do they find you on
Oh,
LinkedIn? Because
yeah. It's
you
just
do some stuff on there, right? You're fairly active-ish on LinkedIn, or are you like me
eh,
and log in once a week?
yeah. Oh, if that. It's LinkedIn though. LinkedIn is Seth C. Williams at the end of LinkedIn doc, whatever
Yeah,
the
yeah,
domain, all that is. But and then yeah, just there would be great. I don't really have too much as far as like social media is concerned or anything like that.
yeah.
Hermitage life, I'm good with it. But Yeah, man. But reach out to me, ask me direct questions if I didn't answer them here. I'm cool with that. I have nothing but just glowing things to say about this path for the right person. And yeah.
Awesome. Thank you as always, Seth. And we
All right.
appreciate everybody
Cool.
tuning in. And we look forward to, Seth, I look forward to talking to you more after this. And hopefully you will
Sweet.
have inspired someone else to take a similar journey.
Awesome, man. Thank you so
All
much.
right. Yeah, absolutely.
See ya.